the 7 watchers who terrorized the 200 fallen angels. In the days before the Great Rebellion, there were those among the watchers who remained steadfast in their divine duty. These were Uriel, Raphael, Uriel, Michael, Sariel, Gabriel, and Ramiel, a cherub of great wisdom. They, like the others, had been appointed by the Almighty to watch over the earth and its inhabitants. They often descended, moving among mankind to ensure the will of the Most High was fulfilled. These 7 were faithful and true, never straying from their mission. At that time all watchers walked as brothers, both those who would remain faithful and those who would later fall. Azel, Samuel, and many others had not yet gone astray, and they too moved among men, observing and learning, but not all watchers remained loyal to their purpose. A group led by Samuel and Azel began to desire what was forbidden. They saw the daughters of men and longed for them. They desired power beyond what had been granted to them. Thus, a great rebellion began. To stir in their hearts, the faithful watchers could perceive the change in their brethren. There were whispers in the heavens and on earth. Samuel, a leader among the watchers, started speaking of inappropriate desires for his kind. He and his followers marveled at the beauty of human women and in their hearts craved to take them for themselves. Azazel, full of ambition, spoke of sharing the hidden knowledge of heaven with men, of crafting weapons, and of teaching forbidden arts to humanity on a fateful night. Samuel convened a secret meeting on Mount Hermon, a towering peak that overlooked the lands of men. In total, 200 gathered, their hearts burning with longing and pride. They met on Mount Hermon, hidden from human eyes, and there they swore an oath to defy their purpose. They bound themselves together, agreeing to descend and take the daughters of men for themselves, teach them the forbidden knowledge, and establish dominion over the earth. Samuel gathered his followers among the many powerful angel leaders, warriors, and scribes who once walked in the light but now stood on the brink of darkness before them. Samuel spoke passionately. "We have been watching the sons of men for so long, seeing their beauty, their lives, and their struggles. Why should we remain distant when we could walk among them? Why not take wives for ourselves, bear powerful offspring, and teach them the secrets of heaven?" His words stirred the hearts of those who had already entertained such thoughts. Then Azel, the craftiest among them, stepped forward and added, "Why not rule over them? We possess knowledge beyond their comprehension. We could teach them the secrets of metalcraft, war, and sorcery. We could shape them in our image and become gods among them." A murmur of agreement ran through the assembly. One by one, they swore an oath, a terrible vow that bound them in their rebellion. They knew the punishment for their crime would be severe, but they no longer feared the wrath of heaven. Their choice was made. The faithful watchers stood aside, distressed by their brother Gabriel, who was in charge of paradise, and the serpents urged them to reconsider. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. Sariel, whose burden was over the spirits that had sinned, saw the impending doom, but none among the fallen heeded his warnings. Uriel, whose task was vengeance upon the fallen luminaries, remained silent, knowing that justice would come in time. Raphael, who guarded the spirits of men, warned, "If we break the boundaries set by the Most High, we will bring chaos to the lower world. The knowledge of heaven is not meant for them to wield." Michael, the great warrior, added, "The rebellion you whisper about will only bring ruin. The Lord of hosts sees all. Let not your desires lead you to destruction." Uriel, who knew the deep mysteries of the world, said, "God sees all. If we join with them, we too will be subject to judgment. I will take no part in this rebellion." Uriel the Avenger was sent to bring justice upon the fallen luminaries, casting down those who had led the world astray, and ensuring their evil deeds would not go unpunished. Sariel stood over the spirits that had sinned, ensuring they were sealed and could not further corrupt the world. Gabriel, who watched over paradise and the serpent, cleansed the earth of the terrible influence of the fallen, and Ramiel, the cherub, was appointed over those who would rise again, the righteous who would find salvation despite the sins of their ancestors. The others concurred. They knew their brothers had chosen a path of destruction, but they would remain faithful. They would continue their duty, watching and guiding as they had been commanded. As the fallen descended to take wives and become kings among men, the 7 holy angels watched with sorrow. They saw how the world changed. The Nephilim, the giant offspring of the fallen angels, began to dominate the earth with their strength and cruelty. Men learned the ways of war, vanity, and sin. The world grew dark, and evil spread. Thus, the holy angels remained in their duty, while the others descended to take wives and reign as kings among men. The earth was corrupted under the rule of the fallen, and war, vanity, and sin spread like wildfire as Ale taught men to forge weapons, adorn themselves with metals and stones, paint their faces, and seek power through sorcery. Samuel and his followers had children, the Nephilim, powerful and terrible, who ravaged the earth and devoured everything in their path. The cries of the earth reached up to heaven. Finally, the Almighty called upon the faithful watchers. Uriel, who watched over the world, was sent to Noah to warn him of the impending flood. Raphael received the order to bind Azazel and cast him into the desert, covering him with darkness until the final judgment. Azazel struggled, but he was no match for the Holy One. Raphael cast him into the desert, binding him in darkness until the final judgment. Michael the great warrior led the charge against Samuel and his followers. He and the celestial army descended upon the rebellious angels, overthrowing them and casting them into the abyss. The fallen were bound, and the waters of the flood came, cleansing the earth of its corruption. Humanity, though wounded by sin, was given another chance. The 7 holy angels continued their watch, faithful to their purpose. Gabriel faced the Isim, bringing ruin to their great cities, and Ramal was tasked with overseeing those who would be resurrected at the end of days. The battle was swift and terrible. The faithful stood against the fallen, and the decree of the Almighty was fulfilled. The rebellious watchers were bound, their dominion undone, and the earth was cleansed by the flood. However, even in judgment, the faithful watchers did not rejoice. They mourned the loss of their brothers, knowing that once they had stood together in purity, watching over the earth as one, but now the fallen had been set apart with no possibility of return. Still, the faithful remained at their posts, ever vigilant, ensuring the will of the Almighty was done to this very day. They continue Uriel, the guardian of Tartarus, Raphael, the healer of men, Ragel, the bringer of justice, Michael, the protector of the righteous, Sariel, the keeper of the fallen spirits, Gabriel, the custodian of paradise, and Ramal, the overseer of resurrection, while their brothers fell into darkness, stood firm in the light. They did not stray. They did not fall, remaining as the faithful watchers, always vigilant, always true, and so the heavens watched over the earth was waiting for the day when all things would be set in their place again. Thank you for your support.